breaking down the capo barrier. That's what we're talking about today on Wayne's World of Mandolin. This is something that you could have struggled with at a jam session or something if you haven't really thought about what it takes to actually be playing in the same key with a guitar or banjo player who's using a capo. And this might be a little easier than you realize if you do it in a pattern-based kind of way. There's another video that I have for beginners that talks about getting started with arpeggio shapes, which are basically an extension of chop chord shapes that we're already familiar with. G, C, D. There are so many songs out there that you can play with just that one pattern, let's call it that, on the fretboard. Instead of thinking about three individual chords, that whole shape, almost like an L shape, moving up the neck, that can be moved along just to match where the capo is on the guitar. If those positions on guitar, if you're familiar with what a guitar player's hands look like when they play a G, then a C, and then a D chord, those shapes, you begin to hear the chord match musically when it gets played, that those different sounds align with each other. So it's pretty logical thought that if the capo were to go on the second fret of the guitar, if they capoed to the second fret and then they were using those exact shapes again on guitar for G, C, and D, those chords are now actually A, D, and E. And it's really important that you should know that that's the 1, 4, and the 5 if you're playing in the key of A. But if you're not quite to that place yet, the simplistic way to look at it would just be to take your G position on the mandolin and move it up 2 frets. The same way the capo got moved up 2 frets on the guitar. We just don't need the capo because our notes are going to be closed position. A. When I make the D, I like to make a full D where I'm going to use these 3 fingers for that shape, and then my index finger is playing an F sharp note on the 2nd fret of the E string. But there's my D chord, and then up to E. Same shape. Listen to this. A, D, E. I've moved, here we listen to these, G, C, D. I've moved those up a whole step or 2 frets so that I'm now playing in the key of A. So a really practical way to look at this, many times on guitar, if you're going to watch a guitar player and watch their fingering, they might also play out of a D position on guitar. And hopefully you would recognize those shapes on guitar for D, G, and A. That's our 1, 4, and 5 chord if we're playing in the key of D. So now this is shifted for us. We still have kind of this L shape, but now the key that we're playing out of is on the top 3 pairs of strings. I like to look at it that way. So here's the D, or the 1 chord. Then we have the 4 chord of G, and then a 5 chord of A. Back to the root. So we would watch those positions go by and see how that would line itself up with the D, G, and the A chords of the guitar. So we have this way of thinking now with these 3 chords that make this shape on the fretboard, and it's capable of the same exact thing. If the guitar player capoed, let's say they put the capo on the 3rd fret this time instead of the 2nd fret. That D position that they're making, think about yours and where it started and move it up. 3 frets means I'm playing an F. And I really do want you to know that it's F is the 1, B flat is the 4 chord, and C is the 5 chord. But just to get started and to be able to play with other people and break down the capo barrier, it's okay if you just watch those shapes on guitar and move your fingers to the positions that you know are going to work. That's F, B flat, C, back to the root chord. So those two things can get you a long way towards breaking down the capo barrier, because I really don't want you to think about using a capo on your mandolin. You just lose so many notes that you really can't access when you do that, and the sound of it just, it loses. There are situations where the open sound of the mandolin would be such an important element that we wanted, like a G. That whole open sound, we can play that same position and bar the chord. But if we were going to play entire songs, in B flat, if you wanted that really open sound of the mandolin, I'm not going to say there never will be a time that you capo the instrument, but for bluegrass, swing, jazz, so many, things that you're going to do musically, you can accomplish all of that without ever using a capo on your mandolin. And just to be able to break down that barrier and understand what you need to do to be in the right chord with all the people who are using a capo, I hope these tips can kind of point you in the right direction. If you like it, then like the video. If you like the channel, then please subscribe. I hope you love your mandolin. I do.